right, boys. Now that we know who the Knicks will be playing in that 2-7, we can run through a bunch of these other series. And I hinted at this earlier. It's amazing, Raheem, how the early bird in some of these instances can catch the worm. Dallas and the Clippers, to me, is the perfect example of that because you guys mentioned the idea of grabbing Dallas at plus money. I missed out on that. But guess what? I got Dallas when FanDuel had them at even money to go and win their series against the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, look on that FanDuel Sportsbook app, Raheem. Minus 142 for the Mavericks to go win the series. That's what you call getting a better number.
Yeah, that's a huge adjustment. And I think a big part of that adjustment is the fact that we are very unaware about the status of Kawhi Leonard. This is a guy who's been missing the last couple of weeks. He might play in this series. He might not. Who knows? I don't think his team knows. I don't think Shams knows. There's nobody who knows what Kawhi Leonard is going to do but Kawhi Leonard and Uncle Dennis. So I think the market is just assuming that he's not going to play. And then when you look at the fact that how well this Dallas Mavericks team has played compared to how much the Clippers have struggled. I mean, you're talking about a team who's basically 500 after the All-Star break. You got to take the Mavericks here. So I understand why
I share the sentiment. I think the market and you know there has to be some sharp movement for that number to go all the way up to that minus 142. And the sharp folks have information. That's the key to all of this is what is the information situation as we come into these series. When you see a movement like that, there is a strong inclination that Kawhi is going to miss at a minimum game one. So I don't know. I'm going to look at this one. I'm going to ponder it a little bit. Do I dare play Dallas to win game one on the idea that Kawhi is going to miss it, but the Clippers to win the series? I'm going to ponder it because I'm not yet ready to throw dirt on this Clippers team. The Paul George and James Harden combo for that portion of the season when we saw those two guys with Kawhi and Kawhi in good health, you can't unsee that. They were on an unbelievable 30 to 35 game tear. It's playoff time. I think Kawhi, if he's able to go, will go. He might miss game one, but the pricing for the dog might catch my attention. I'm just going to sit tight.
I'm looking here, House. Dallas minus 1.5 for game one on Sunday, minus 120 on a money line. Dallas to win the series and win game one, plus 130. I actually may go the other way on this, House. And I understand your concern. Hey, Kawhi Leonard comes back. He's the best player in the series. He's got all this playoff juju from years past. And it ends up being overwhelming. Like, yeah, that's part of the handicap. But, you know, Raheem, I go back to last year. You looked as good as anybody in game one and game two against Phoenix. And how did that turn out? We didn't see him for the rest of the series. I can't count on Kawhi at this point. I'm on Dallas. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I'm going to approach this as if Kawhi Leonard's not going to play the entire series. That's how I'm approaching this at this point in time because we just don't know. Like, his track record says either he's going to miss game one or he could miss the rest of the series. Like, he could even show up for game two, play a half, and then just be done for the year. So I think this number is telling us that. And I gave it out on 100. I gave out the Mavericks for the series. I gave out the Mavericks -1 for game one. I look at it like this. If Kawhi is ruled in for game one, you get a rusty Kawhi. If he's not ruled in, then this number jumps and you have a chance at a middle opportunity by taking the Clippers at a higher number and you put yourself in a good position. So if I was everybody, if you didn't grab the Mavericks, grab them now. And then you could always probably come back on this later because the Mavericks are going to have a lead in this series.
All right, boys. We got Minnesota and Phoenix. Game one on Saturday. Another one of these series, House, where the series price is shifted because they opened it Sunday. 3-6 matchup. It was basically even money. Phoenix is obviously matched up very well with Minnesota throughout the regular season. Not great Anthony Edwards games against the Phoenix Suns. Minus 136 for Phoenix to go and win the series. And if you're looking at game one, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, which will be a nice little appetizer for me, with the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. You do have the Suns as a 2-point dog in game one. So Suns +2 in game one, but minus money house to win the series. Your thoughts?
I like the Suns, and we talked it through a little bit. This price has moved in the direction of the Suns. It was minus 120 on Monday when we were together for East Coast Bias. Now minus 136. You mentioned it. I'm fine with going ahead and betting the Suns. I'll bet them on the money line. I'll bet them getting the points. I have no problem with it. The version of the Suns that we saw Sunday was the first time that we've seen that version of these Phoenix Suns with this combination of personnel. And it was an eye-opener for me. Now, obviously, well-known Joe House recency bias kind of guy, but look, that defense was no joke. And Minnesota had every incentive to try to win that game. That was not a game that Minnesota was like laissez-faire about. They wanted to win. They could not score. And it's been Dream's recurring theme when it comes to this Minnesota Timberwolves team. They don't score in the fourth quarter. They don't score in the clutch. I would have been skeptical, but for having seen with my own two eyes the way that this Suns team rose to the challenge, avoided the play-in altogether, said, yes, give us the T-Wolves going forward through these playoffs. I'm going to lay it with the Suns, fellas.
I don't think there's a series I hate more.
Wow. Okay.
Like, the Suns have absolutely dominated this team all year long. And they've proven that with their shot making, this is a bad matchup for the Wolves. But on the other hand, this is playoff basketball. And we know when you have bigs like Rudy Gobert, and you can get inside and you can dominate inside of the paint, you can grab rebounds, that's a bad spot to be in. And Kevin Durant doesn't look like the same guy to me. He looks like a guy who's wearing down. From a numbers perspective, the sharp guys are going to see this number and say, the Wolves are to play. Because they should be laying more than this based on how they perform all throughout the regular season. And the Wolves are actually -2.
Yes. Okay. All right.
So they should be the favorites for this series, and they should be laying more in game one based on just the numbers. But you can't play the numbers when the other team has more shot makers and you struggle in the clutch. So I just don't like the series at all. I'm going to look at this from a zigzag series perspective. Whoever wins game one, I'm taking the opposite game two, and I'm going to go from there.
See, to me, this says 7-game series written all over it. I'm going to bet Minnesota in game one. I think they're going to be juiced up. I think they'll feed off the crowd. The idea of Anthony Edwards having this moment in front of, the home faithful. And I know his numbers have not been great against Phoenix. I think we get a big effort out of the T-Wolves in game one. And then what I'm going to look to do, Raheem, that is going to be my moment to pounce on Phoenix to go and win the series, because I'm going to get them in a much better number. I'm going to get Phoenix, instead of getting them laying 136, I'll say, okay, I'll get Phoenix at 105, 110, 115. I'm not going to lay the juice in what should be a 7-game series where, oh, by the way, the 7th game would be in Minnesota, not in Phoenix. So I'm with you. That is a very, very tough.
I mean,
very tough
you look
series.
at this series, would it surprise you if both teams are down in this series?
No, not in the least.
So it's just like, I don't know what to do with it. So I think it's zigzag theory, and I like your approach.
Okay, excellent. Now, let's get to the two series you have in the Eastern Conference, because there's a similar dynamic, guys, with Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers and Giannis and what's going on with the Milwaukee Bucks. You have the Bucks taking on the Indiana Pacers, and we talked on Monday, and we were talking about Milwaukee at -170, -180. House is like, I'm all over Indiana every which way. Well, House, Indiana now is at +100 for the series. Milwaukee only at -118. Remember, Indiana has played them tough. They've had good regular season success. And you have no idea when Giannis is going to come back and play. Like, that's even one for me where I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm getting a discount on the Bucks. I the more and more I've thought about it, the more I'm like, no, I'm not getting involved with this because of the uncertainty with Giannis.
When we were together on Monday, I had the conviction we are not going to see Giannis in this series. It's not a matter of what game is Giannis going to appear in. He's going to appear in no games, because that injury if you compare it, and we did the homework, we did the legwork on this when the injury occurred, compared it to calf injuries of prominent players in the past. It's just not the kind of injury that you can come back from in short order. I mean, Kevin Durant's the most prominent example of it a handful of years ago that led to him blasting his Achilles. But where the injury apparently occurred and all the information we have about that injury does not suggest, in terms of the timeline, a return for Giannis. So the Pacers at plus 180 on Monday was my favorite play of these entire playoffs. Now the market has come to build into its pricing this information that Giannis is out for game one. Well, he ain't just out for game one. So I think it's still plus money for the Pacers is a good investment. There's nothing about this Bucks team without Giannis that this Pacers team has an issue with. And I honestly think Rick Carlisle versus Doc, like that's an advantage.
Oh, that's not even close. No. That's not even close. Raheem, that's not even close. Major coaching advantage for Indiana. Major
coaching advantage, but I can't play it at this number. Like, to me, I think this is Bucks or pass, regardless of how much I think the Bucks stink. Because when you're looking at a price of like minus 300 and now you're down to minus 118, there's going to be sharps in the market who just think that there's value on the Bucks. And I can't argue with that, because who's to say that what the Indiana Pacers do in the regular season with all the run and gun offense and running up and down the court and scoring as much as possible is going to translate into the postseason? We haven't seen it. We have yet to see that. So, and then obviously you're missing Benedict Mathurin. Obviously they don't have Hill because they traded him. I don't think this Pacers offense is going to be the same. So I can't buy in on this price. I just cannot do it. I think if you didn't buy it on Monday when House told you to buy in on it, you're late to the party. So I don't think you should buy in on this price. I think you should play it game by game. Maybe play the Pacers in game one, but I'm not touching it right now.
Yeah, I understand that. I think it makes total sense. You didn't get the best of the Indiana number. And House, are there any concerns for you about Halliburton and the way he's worn down throughout the course of this year? Because I know from a Knick perspective, I was dying for the Knicks to go and play the Indiana Pacers, because I said, look, yes, they can go and run and gun you, but they haven't been as efficient offensively over the last few weeks. Halliburton looks like a guy's kind of worn down a little bit, and then you're going to get him in a best-of-7 series. This is like stay away city for me, because with my luck, I'm going to get a crummier number on the Pacers. I'm going to have to be sitting there watching Giannis come back, and I'm going to feel like an absolute idiot for jumping in on this. So for me, I'm staying away from this. This is a game-by-game type deal for me. But any concern with Halliburton and the way he's worn down?
So from that perspective and what you just articulated, I will lose this Pacers bet, and I am invested in it. If that comes to pass, your scenario, of course, there is reasonable concern about this Pacers team. Halliburton hasn't been the same guy coming off of that injury. The Pacers still have a variety of ways to score the ball. They have, their offensive rating doesn't match what it showed in the first half of the season, but still good efficiency. This handicap for me is all about the Bucks. They are bad at scoring the basketball. They really need Bobby Portis, giant Bobby Portis games to be able to score. Because here's the thing. Is Dame Lillard able to prop this team up and propel them forward? I'm not seeing it. And I'm not seeing it in the future because I haven't seen it in the past. That dude needs to get on the Kobe plan and get himself to Germany or to Mexico or somewhere.
And he
needs some juvenation because there is nothing about his lift, his performance. We watched it on Sunday. He's not effective. And if that's the version of Dame that we're going to get, and that's the version we've had all season, I just can't get there with this Bucks team.
So I'm glad you mentioned Dame, because you talked about his ability to score. What we haven't spoke about is his inability to defend.
Can't guard me or you.
Right now on FanDuel Sportsbook, there's some decent props on there. And one that caught my eye was Tyrese Halliburton to score 20 points in every game of the series, plus 800. How is Dame going to stop him?
Now we're talking.
He's not. He's not. Long story short, he's not. Okay, guys. The NBA TV special. No surprise here. Orlando and Cleveland. I'm sure the networks are thrilled to have this one on their air. Orlando back in a postseason series. Cleveland trying to avenge what happened last year where they lost to the Knicks in 5 games. I think this series price is a little out of whack here, Raheem, because in theory, yes, Cleveland experienced. Cleveland went through it a year ago. Orlando, kind of one of these teams that struggles to score. We know that. First time getting their playoff chops and their playoff experience. I don't trust the Cavs. I don't trust what I saw down the stretch. I have no idea what kind of status Donovan Mitchell is in going into this series. And I know Orlando is going to compete their tails off. Now, I don't know if they're going to win the series, but I am playing them plus games. I see it plus 1.5. It's at minus 128. That is a bet I am absolutely making. I think we have a 7-game series here with Cleveland, who I don't trust to go take care of business in a favorable way. I just don't believe that they'll go win this series in 4 or 5 games. Go prove me wrong, Cavaliers. And I think Orlando will be spunky. I do. I think they'll compete their tails off. Where do you stand on Cavs and Magic?
I agree with you. I changed my mind because the Cavs at their height, yes, they should win this series. I don't think the Cavs are at their height. You're talking about a team which is 12-17 post All-Star break, net rating of minus 3.6, 26 amongst NBA teams. We know Donovan Mitchell looks like a shell of his former self, and he doesn't want to be there. When I dug into the numbers, the Magic are a top 10 defense. The Cavs against top 10 defenses, 9-15, 25th in spread differential, minus 3.4. So if you ask me, I think the Magic can not only keep up in this series, I think they can win this series outright. And
plus 164, by the way. Plus 164.
I'm taking the Magic plus 4.5 for game 1 in Cleveland. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna go from there, but it would not be a bad bet if you took the Magic plus 166 to win this series.
Wow, Raheem singing a different tune from Monday House. Can I get you on board with the Orlando Magic?
The elements of this, but the way you guys both sized this up, very attractive to me. I want to play just total number of games. 6 games is plus 200. 7 games is plus 230. I'm down on both of those because I agree with the perspectives that both of you all have shared. But I think I'm now convinced I like this investment in Orlando. I know I would prefer to root for Orlando. And since this is the NBA TV series, I have to have a little something down on, to make it interesting. So I think I'm there with the Magic. I like this, fellas.
I think we have ourselves a family play. We don't trust the Cavs. Long story short, we got a lot more coming your way. This loaded edition of East Coast Bias. Now, this time next week, a certain member of our trio is going to have the number 2 pick in the draft for his respective football team. And now all the mock drafts, they're over, they're done with. I am very curious to see where Joe House will be putting his hard-earned American dollars on what you were going to see come draft day. So have a little fun. Draft's a week away. Let's get it. We'll come right back.